It's number 5 right there. Number 5. Saw it for the 5th time today. And so now Superman is tied with Eyes Wide Shut for 3rd place in my personal history of how many of movies I have seen the most times in theaters. So there you go. I don't know if I'm going to see it anymore. I would like to. I don't know if I'll have time, but yeah. So I'm up to 5 for Soups. Hi everybody, welcome to the show. David Colby, I'm gonna try to entertain you during your 2-hour drive home using my voice as much as possible. Although I did just do I didn't see that in the chat. I did just do a visual, not a gag exactly, but there is a visual element. See, David, you can't see this. At least I hope not. I hope you're watching the road. I held up my ticket stub for the 5th time I saw Superman earlier today. Anyway, Michael L says, where do you get the time to see a movie 5 times in a few weeks? It helps that I'm my own boss and I work for myself and I can kind of adjust my schedule. But also, and this is something that I haven't told anybody publicly yet because it doesn't really matter. It's not the kind of thing I would share publicly anyway. But for the past few weeks, for a minor issue that I am in the process of correcting, but I'm not in a super big hurry about it. But for the last few weeks, my truck has actually been out of commission and been sitting in the garage, and I haven't been able to drive it. Fortunately, my movie theater is walking distance. So all of the 5 times I have gone to see Superman thus far, I have walked to the theater, and it's about a 20-minute walk there and a 20-minute walk back. So if my truck was running and I could just zip over to the theater in, 3 or 4 minutes, I may have seen it even more than the 5 times. But we're sitting on 5 right now. So, anyway, thank you all for joining. Kirok says, is David Corenswet better than Christopher Reeve? I wouldn't go that far, but he's really, 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 really good. Steven, I know I never should have gotten rid of the Jeep. Actually, no, probably, hopefully next year sometime, I'm going to get a new vehicle. I'm going to get rid of the truck and get something new. My dream for many years as a MacGyver fan has been to get a Jeep. Not an old one like he's got, like a newer model, but like a Jeep Wrangler, like but my brother, who is an auto mechanic, has advised me against it. So I believe I'm going to reluctantly take his advice and not get a Jeep and get another vehicle. But yeah, that was the plan for a very long time. And then my brother's expertise in the automotive industry dashed that dream cruelly against the rocks, and now it's dead. But anyway, thanks for coming, everybody. As always, I will be answering questions submitted ahead of time by my Patreon patrons and channel members first thing. So if you are with us and you have something that you want me to talk about, a question you want me to answer, or just anything you want me to pay attention to, including a super chat, if you were planning on being so generous and dropping one of those in the live chat, which I always encourage and welcome. If CMAC, really, are Wranglers bad for your back? I'll keep that in mind. Yeah, I liked MacGyver, but not Voyager, Daniel. Yeah. I love MacGyver. MacGyver is one of my favorite shows ever. Now, I would not argue for it as like a conventionally good show necessarily, but in terms of shows I enjoy watching, it's, pardon the pun, light years ahead of Voyager. Anyway, okay, so if you're in the live chat, you have something you want to ask me, please hold on to it until later, because I'm turning to the pre-submitted patron and member questions first thing. And well, Daniel B., we're just never going to get along then, buddy. If you can't stand MacGyver, we're just never, I'm kidding. We can get along just fine, but that is definitely a difference between the two of us in terms of taste in TV shows, and who really cares. Anyway, there are a bunch of patron and member questions this time. I will try to deal with them fairly yet efficiently. So let's see how this goes. First one is from the Mixed Messenger, who says, so Steve, how do you cope with everything that's going on in the world and politics? It seems lately stuff is ramped up. I had a few questions in mind, but those were superseded with other updates like Hogan, lists, and political ilk. There are some good things, at least. Superman and Fantastic Four were good. Love Pedro in the role, and I hope he gets integrated into the Avengers as the new leader with Stark and Rogers out. Overall, I think the new Lex is tied for second best. Spacey is still number one for me in returns, followed by Rosenbaum in Smallville. Holt is just as good as Rosenbaum, and I liked him in X-Men. Anyway, with information overload, do you take breaks or just soldier on while the proverbial deluge continues? P.S. Thoughts on the Coldplay concert scandal? Did people go too far? No, I take breaks. I'm not like, I mean, I'm paying attention to the news every day in the sense that I'm checking in on it and seeing if anything major has happened and kind of trying to keep up with what people are talking about on social media. But yeah, I am taking breaks, and a lot of it is with, I mean, whatever the current video that I'm working on is about. If I'm working on a video that is not like a political video, if it's like a Star Trek video or a comic book video or whatever it is, a MacGyver video, Daniel, um, then I'm focusing on that, and that's where my attention goes. And other time, I mean, I'm watching a movie, I'm watching something on TV. Like, yes, I do take breaks, and that helps it to not be overwhelming. Thoughts on the Coldplay concert scare? Honestly, I don't give a shit. That is those people's private business. I don't care. It's kind of funny. Like, if you're having a secret affair, why would you go to a concert in public together? But I don't care. It's not my business. It's their own personal business. And did people go too far? I mean, there are a lot of sort of internet detectives who kind of, once they get their teeth into something, they refuse to let it go. And, yeah, people, I mean, people went too far, sure, because it's nobody. I mean, I don't understand why anybody else would care unless it was like a public figure. If he's like the president or something, I mean, yeah, okay, sure. But if it's just like some random asshole CEO and his head of HR who he's having an affair with, I mean, yeah, it's not necessarily commendable behavior, but do I actually give a shit? No, I don't. I don't really see why anybody else would either. Carlisle the Cinephile. Hello, Steve. I recently got into a debate with my brother-in-law where he regurgitated the argument from Big Bang Theory, where Indy had no impact on the plot of Raiders of the Lost Ark. It got me thinking about how tired I am of that claim and others like it. Like people who ask why the Fellowship didn't just fly the Eagles to Mordor, or the fact that Khan shouldn't recognize Chekhov because he didn't appear in Space Seed. Arguments like that just seem so pedantic. I blame CinemaSins for convincing an entire generation that they need to try and outsmart a movie by pointing out anything that might be perceived as a plot hole, even if it isn't actually one. Are there any shallow nitpicks like that that really get under your skin? Yes, but I want to commend you for that phrasing there, trying to outsmart a movie. I think that is a great way to put it, and I find that just as annoying as you do. Yes, actually, I was reminded of one just yesterday in a comment to one of my videos, as far as like shallow nitpicks. It was in, I think it was my Star Trek retro review of yesterday's Enterprise. And someone left this long comment that I almost deleted just because I found it so fucking tedious, but I decided to let it go. I figured, all right, I'll be nice and just let it go, because it was kind of on the edge of, I would delete this just because it's so fucking boring. But they said, I mean, this is ridiculous, because if it's an alternate universe, then none of these people would be here. And why would the ship look exactly the same except for little differences? And why are the uniforms the same except for little differences? And how come it's the same people and they all are serving on the same ship? And it's just like, dude, it's a fucking TV show. Do you want them to do like an alternate universe show where it's more quote unquote realistic? And it's all completely different people, and it's a completely different ship, and it's just an episode from a completely different show. Like, but it would be realistic according to you that way. Like, you're willing to suspend your disbelief for like a gigantic spaceship flying thousands of times the speed of light all over the galaxy in the future with aliens and artificial gravity and everything else that Star Trek has that is just complete bullshit, that was just made up so they could have a fucking sci-fi show. You're okay with that. But when they do an alternate universe episode that makes use of their pre-existing cast of characters and sets, oh, that's insulting. How dare you? Yeah, that's one that I saw recently. And I was like, what? Get a fucking life. What the fuck? Quadfarble Zinzinwagglebus the Third. I had a friend in high school by that name. In light of Paramount CBS openly bribing the president to assist them with their upcoming merger, what commercial ramifications should we as the consumers undertake? Cancel our Paramount Plus? Only watch Colbert and The Daily Show? I, Quadgarble Zinzinwagglebus the Third, not Steve Shives, am considering pirating all the content I want to make sure they no longer profit off of me until I have recovered my portion of the 16 million plus. Since I am morally opposed to piracy, that would be a big step for me. Talk me off of this cliff or tell me where to get a glider. So, I mean, you're going to be doing something hurtful to somebody either way. If you continue watching Paramount Plus, then yes, you are supporting the corporation that is doing this indefensible, evil thing, this act of capitulation to the Trump administration. But if you cancel it, then that will not only punish that corporation, it will also punish the actual artists and creative people who work for that corporation that make the work that we like, that we watch Paramount Plus for, or whatever the streaming service in question may be in the first place. And the same thing is true of pirating. Like if you pirate media that you would ordinarily pay for, and in paying for it, you would contribute to payment that would be given, or maybe future jobs that would be given to the creative people involved, then you're depriving them of that. So there is no ideal solution. My advice is to follow your heart and to do what you think is right, or to do what you think is the most right. What is the thing that you can, that will most allow you as an individual to sleep at night? Because as an individual, I don't think what you do just yourself makes that big of a difference one way or the other. I am not going to fuss at anyone who says I'm going to keep watching Paramount Plus because I want to watch the shows I like, and I want to send a message that, you know, I'm going to watch Stephen Colbert every day because you canceled him, and I'm going to show you that he has an audience and you fucked up by getting rid of him. You know, or I'm not going to fuss at anybody who takes the opposite view and says, I canceled everything. If I want to watch something on that platform, I'll pirate it. I'll borrow a copy from a friend. Like, that's fine too. I am not going to fuss at anybody. And like I said, I am not going to recommend anything to anybody, or, you know, try to push somebody in one direction or another, because to be completely honest, I don't really care what you do. Like, I care about Paramount being shitheads and you know, bending the knee to Trump. I think that's incredibly you know, worrying to put it mildly, and disappointing. I mean, that's important, but as to what you as an individual or any person does in response to it, that's your decision, and I am not going to try and wrestle you one way or the other. So I'm sorry that I'm probably not that much help. You know, as far as what you're going to do. William Tucker, writing. You do it well when you're not extemporaneous. Did you attend school with writing in mind? You mentioned script writing, I believe. Take care, be well, have fun. Yes, I went to college for English as an English major, and I had a creative writing concentration that was not centered specifically on script writing. I took several creative writing classes over my collegiate career. Two of them were screenwriting classes. It was, you know, the first part and the second part of like the same course. It was like screenwriting 1 and screenwriting 2. But other than that, it was more sort of generic creative writing, focused on mostly writing prose, you know, prose fiction. But yes, I did go to school with writing in mind. I did take writing classes. I did study writing specifically, in addition to studying literature and all the other things that you would ordinarily study in pursuit of an English degree. So yes, I did, is the short answer to that question. I did attend school with writing in mind. The duality of David Colby, who is driving home at this very moment. I really love hating on things. This is why David and I are always going to be friends, even if we have differing opinions on stuff. I really love hating on things. It's really fun to hate on stuff with your friends. But I also really love gushing about things. And it's also fun to gush about stuff with your friends. So, like, holy shit, Superman. What a movie! I adored it from beginning to end. My favorite thing about it is how rather than getting lost in tedious explanations and lore and quote unquote world building, the movie instead told a story. Imagine it, introducing characters by just having them act and letting their actors act. Like we learn everything we need to know about Mr. Terrific by the things that he says and how he says them. Imagine it. I describe it as no lore only story, and more comic book movies need to do this. What was your favorite part? If you haven't seen the movie, mute the video until the next question starts and is, I don't know, about the Epstein files or something else fucking depressing. This is why I don't ask politics questions, because there's nothing to say but, aha, this sucks. Ain't that the truth? I agree with everything you said. I could have written it myself, especially about Mr. Terrific. I have said almost the exact same thing to people as an example of why I love this movie so much and why I love its approach to storytelling. If you watch this movie and you have never seen Mr. Terrific before, you never saw him on like any of the animated shows, you never read him in the comics, you know almost nothing about him in terms of biographical detail. You don't know his real name. You don't know his origin story. You don't know why he does what he does. You don't know where he comes from. You don't know anything about his background at all. And yet, I feel like I know him as well or better than anyone else in the movie for exactly the reason you state, because the movie lets us watch him being him, interacting with other characters, making choices, showing personality, letting us get to know him just by showing him to us. That's storytelling. That's movie making. That's filmmaking. That's characterization. And it's wonderful. And it's done very successfully in his case and in the case of every other character in the goddamn movie. It's great. No, I agree. It's great. Like I said before at the beginning of the show, I've seen it 5 times now, and I would like to go back and see it some more. And by the way, also today I pre-ordered the 4K Blu-ray. It's not coming out for months yet, but it's available for pre-order. So I pre-ordered the motherfucker because I know I'm going to want to own it, as a physical copy. But yeah, I mean, it's hard to pick a favorite part. There's one part that I'm gonna save because I know it's gonna come up in a later question, but um, maybe the ending. I love the ending. The ending makes me cry. The ending made me tear up. Not for the first time when I saw it today. Again, for the 5th time. The ending is just perfect with him in the Fortress of Solitude, and I won't say any more for anybody who hasn't seen the movie, but the ending, the closing moments with Superman before the credits are just wonderful. Absolutely wonderful. So yeah, I agree. I love gushing about this movie. It's a great movie. And I'm glad you saw it, and I'm glad you liked it too. Holly Schmidt, in the wake of Star Trek's owner Paramount's recent deals with the Trump administration, oh, I am curious to hear what you think would be the most fitting comparison to Paramount in terms of Star Trek character, group, empire, etc. Thank you. Oh man, that's a great question. I think I'm going to have to go with Deep Space Nine here. If it was going to be a character, it would probably be Weyoun. Paramount would be Weyoun, sort of obsequiously serving at the feet of Trump, who would be the founders. And if we're going for a species, I looked this up earlier because I couldn't remember their name, but I knew like who they were. There's a species in Deep Space Nine that appears a few times and is mentioned a few more times called the Lesepians, and they're very buddy with the Cardassians, and they are known for doing business with the Cardassians, even though it's known that like the Cardassians are these totalitarian fascists. So they're kind of like enablers and supporters and collaborators with the Cardassians. So yeah, maybe Paramount, if they were going to be an entire alien species, maybe they'd be Lesepians. Donkey Hody. Hi, Steve. Hope you're doing well. I don't recall you ever giving your opinion on Spider-Man No Way Home, specifically the introduction of the previous actors from Spider-Man movies, both heroes and villains. Would you like DC to try something similar? Some of the Batman versions would be harder age-wise, and some sadly have passed away. I think most of the recent Superman actors are around, although I'm not sure if they left the franchise on good terms. Your thoughts? I thought No Way Home was terrific. I thought it was probably the best one of those that I've ever seen in terms of like a big multiverse thing where it's different actors from the same role in different movies, and it's the premise is very sort of fan servicey and crowd pleasing, but they actually told a story that revolved around our Spider-Man, like our current Spider-Man, the Tom Holland Spider-Man, and the other Spider-Man were there as important supporting characters that had their own arcs and had reasons to be there other than just standing up and waving to the fans, but also they were supporting characters to, MCU Spidey's story. So I thought it was really, really well pulled off. And probably, like I said, probably the uh, ideal version of that kind of story. No, I would not like to see DC try something similar. They kind of tried something similar with the Flash, and it didn't really work, although part of that was all of the multiverse characters had nothing to do with the Flash. It was like, here's two different versions of Batman, and here's Supergirl from the Snyderverse, from an alternate Snyderverse version without and here's the villain from Man of Steel, and here's Michael Keaton as Batman. It's like, what's all this Batman? Even when Flash was in like the multiverse and he was looking at the different universes, it was all Batman and Superman stuff. Like, where were the other versions of I think there was like one other version of the Flash that he saw. So I mean, no, they've already tried it with the Flash movie. It was not a good idea. It was not well executed. I don't want to see that with Batman. I don't want to see that with Superman. They've got a really great new Superman now. If they want to do more Superman movies, I would rather they just stick with what they've got here with David Corn Sweat and Rachel Brosnahan and Nicholas Hoult, and not do this, fan servicey, fan wanky multiverse thing. If for no other reason than also Marvel is still kind of doing that. So if I were DC, I would want to separate myself from Marvel as much as possible and not create the impression that I'm chasing Marvel. I would want to do my own thing. And if Marvel is doing multiverse with 5 different actors playing the same character, then definitely don't do that. But so no. I mean, it depends on the execution. Am I saying that if somebody did a Superman movie with like Dean Cain and Tyler Hoechlin and Brandon Ralph coming back to play Superman, that it would absolutely have to suck? No, as Spider-Man No Way Home proves, like there's a way you could potentially do it and make it work, but that doesn't mean I want them to try. And that doesn't mean I wouldn't rather just see another Superman movie like the one I just saw. So no, I would not I like No Way Home a lot, but I would not welcome a Batman or a Superman or some other DC Comics version of that. Don Quixote, this will be my first Patreon member question. With the cancellation of The Late Show with Stephen Colbert, I'm planning to drop my Paramount Plus, but the downside is that it will eliminate my access to any new Star Trek shows. How are you approaching this? Also, do you think that after the merger is signed, the resulting company will uncancel Colbert? I am not doing anything differently. I am still subscribed to Paramount Plus, like I was talking about in the previous question. I don't think there is really any ideal way to handle it. I mean, I would hate for a bunch of us progressive minded people to dump Paramount Plus for, completely justifiable, completely valid moral and ethical and ideological reasons. But then as a result, a bunch of us who were going to watch Star Trek don't watch it anymore. And Paramount Plus says, well, there goes the value of that franchise. And, I think that's a little extreme. I don't think that would actually happen. Star Trek is one of the more valuable IPs that Paramount has. But like I said, there's no obvious right thing to do here. But as for will the resulting company uncancel Colbert? No. He was canceled, I think, because of what the company was going to be. No, the resulting company is the one that is bending the knee to Trump. No, they're not going to uncancel Colbert. I think he's going to be fine. I think he's going to, if he wants another show someplace else, he'll get one. Or he can probably comfortably retire at this point if that's what he wants. But no, Colbert is going to be fine. But no, they're not going to uncancel the show. Neil, how does Quark collect payment from Starfleet personnel? Do they each have an account with a balance? Do they have unlimited funds? Could Dr. Bashir be denied? Could he pay for Garrick if his payment is denied? How are Delta Quadrant people? You know what I mean by people paying. Thanks so much. I love your work, Neil. Well, that is a question that is deliberately left unaddressed in the show because there's probably not a great answer for it. How how does an economy like the Federation that no longer uses currency interact economically with economies like the Ferengi that still do use currency? How does that work? And I mean, you can imagine different ways that it could work. And actually, there's a really great book called The Economics of Star Trek that I did a video about many, many years ago. It's interesting to speculate on, but it's probably for the best that all of that stuff is left out of the show because it kind of gets complicated. And also, it's really not that important on a story level. I would imagine it's probably something like the Starfleet personnel have some sort of an account balance. They're given some sort of a stipend from Starfleet so that they can participate in the local economy. But I mean, nothing's ever really established on camera, nor should it have been, because like I said, that's not really important. But it's probably something like they have like a stipend or an expense account or something. Cast Iron Chaos, since it is becoming a tradition, Steve, to make you say things in these Ask Away videos, here's some Vogon poetry. O freddled gruntbugly, thy mictoritions are to me as plurtled gabble blotchets on a lurgid bee that morgiously hath blurted out its irted jertles into a rancid, festering, confectious organ squealer. Group, I implore thee, my foonting turling dromes, and hoopchiously drangle me with crinkly bindle wordles, or else I shall rend thee in the gobberwarts with my blurgle crunchin'. See if I don't. P.S. I wonder what our country would look like today, only 6 months into this fascist regime, if Boss Twump gave $100 billion funding increase to the educational system instead of ICE. I mean, fewer people in unlawful detention, which would be a good thing. Yeah, that would be nice. But of course, Boss Twump would never do that, would he? Some random geek to remind you all about Disability Pride Month. Yes, it is August 1st as you read this, Steve. So July has passed us, which is my birthday month. I am now 41. Happy birthday. But July is also Disability Pride Month. Went from a one-day celebration to a full month celebration to commemorate the signing of the first ever significant legislation for disabled folks, the Americans with Disabilities Act, the ADA. Signed into law in 1990. Yes, that was 35 years ago. Long ago, because the 90s are old now. Also, not so long ago as well. Shows how much more progress is needed for disabled folks. That the most significant bill was passed in the 90s, and the first of its kind, and many disabled folks have criticized the bill for not going far enough, having no enforcement mechanisms, and exempting churches from it. What, people are proud of being disabled? As was mentioned in the last patron member hangout, not pride as in being proud, but pride in the opposite of shame. Folks should not feel ashamed for being disabled. More in my next question, and I'll move right on to that. But yes, that's what pride means. And it sucks that we still have to make that correction, but most of the people who are asking that question or are saying that are doing so in bad faith. You know, if I'm not allowed to be proud of being straight, why is somebody allowed to be proud of being gay? Like, it's bad faith. Anyway, some random geek who hopes to do well in explaining why disability pride is important. Just like how queer folks should not be ashamed for not being straight and cis, hence pride. But because of capitalism and internalized capitalism, folks wish they didn't have a broken body, so that I could provide for myself and my family. I wish I didn't need to rely on others to live. Granted, many disabled folks wish they didn't have chronic pain and other issues that prevent them from doing things they love doing. I wish I could play video games, but I've been in bed for hours because of pain. But it is not the same as needing to use a walker to get around and hearing from a family member, "Isn't that you just giving up?" That was said to Phoenix. Speaking of disabled folks, Phoenix and Joanna always need money in order to just live. Not being in the hole, pay for rent, bills, meds, and even food. But if you are disabled, you can't work and thus unable to support yourself. Self-reliance is a capitalist myth anyway. I could go on, but I ran out of characters. And I'll bring up charitylinks.page right now, and I'll bring it up again at the end of the show. Barry Renshaw. Hi, Steve. Great to hear last week you were a fan of Millennium also. Interested in knowing what season you preferred. Season 1's more ambiguous tone, Season 2's more full-blown conspiracy, or 3's death cult. Also have started watching Nowhere Man on YouTube via your recommendation. I'm liking it so far. Always nice to hear a new to me Mark Snow score. and see a pre-millennium Megan Gallagher. All the best. Vive la resistance. Season 1 for me for Millennium. I really lost interest in season 2. I thought season 1 was great, but I guess a lot of people thought it was too dark and it wasn't the ratings getter that they hoped it would be. So they thought by lightening it up and turning it over um, Glenn Morgan, and I can't remember the other guy. But anyway, two of the head writers, or two of the most successful writers for X-Files. But anyway, they took it over and kind of lightened it up. And I mean, I'm a fan of their X-Files work, but I really didn't think they did any favors for Millennium in season 2. And by season 3, I felt like it was pretty much gone. So season 1 for Millennium was my favorite era of that show. And yeah, Nowhere Man. Oh God, I love that theme song. I've got it playing in my head right now. I love the Nowhere Man theme song and the opening narration. My name is Thomas Vale, or at least it was. I'm a photographer. I had it all: a wife, Allison, friends, a career, and in one moment it was all taken away. All because of a single photograph. I have it, they want it, and they will do anything to get the negative. I am keeping this diary as proof that these events are real. I know they are. They have to be. Oh! Nowhere Man! That's my shit! Vigo the Carpathian. Hi, Steve. There's a new Naked Gun movie coming out Friday. I could have seen that today, but I saw Superman for the 5th time. I'll see the Naked Gun soon, though. I would really like to see it. A Spaceballs sequel has recently been announced too. While I'm hopeful these will be good, I put the odds at 2-1 that we're going to end up with a bunch of nostalgia slop. With that context, what are your thoughts on the current state of theatrical comedies? It seems like studios are less inclined than ever to risk putting pure comedies in theater, and even less so if the comedy is original. Is it possible we're simply in a prolonged rut and just need one hit to give the studio some confidence? Laughing together in a theater is such a joyful experience. It's a shame we don't get much of it anymore. Yeah, I think it's just in a rut. I mean, if you remember about 10 or 15 years ago, there were a ton of theatrical comedies. Like, they were all over the place, and some of them were making massive amounts of money. But things go in cycles. Things go in the movie business. Things go in cycles economically, and they go in cycles in terms of genre and what's popular as well. Now, if this new Naked Gun movie is successful, and even though yes, it's an IP, you know, it's kind of it's a legacy sequel sort of, so it's not completely fresh and original. But it's a comedy. It's a theatrical comedy. If it's successful and makes a lot of money and gets good reviews, hopefully that will inspire studios to do some more like that. And I would really like to see it because, I mean, comedy is, you know, you don't want every single movie that you see in the theater to be either like a serious adult drama or like a violent action movie or a superhero movie. Like, variety is the spice of life. So I hope that it's successful, and I hope that it encourages more comedies to be produced for theaters. And yeah, but I think it's just that, you know, we've been in kind of an era lately where theatrical comedies have not been prioritized, and hopefully that will come to an end. Farah Grimm, hello from me and my husband. Hi to both of you. Hope your week is going well. What are your thoughts on Strange New Worlds' habit of doing more extremely comical episodes, like the musical episode or the animated series crossover or supposedly a Muppets episode? Do you think these go too far and undermine the series' credibility? No, not at all. The only thing I care about is if the episode is good. What does it mean for a Star Trek show to have credibility? What does that even mean? The show has credibility if it's making good episodes. That's how I view it. What credibility? It's a sci-fi fantasy show. What credibility are we talking about? Are we talking about credibility in terms of like its messages, in terms of continuing the Star Trek tradition of being political and progressive and sort of calling us to be better people and critiquing the problems of our society? I think it needs to have credibility in that sense, but I mean, you can do a musical episode or a comedic episode that still does the social critique thing. There's no reason why those two concepts have to be mutually exclusive. And also, you can do the social critique thing and the political thing as a series while also taking time out every once in a while to just do a goofy, fun episode. There's nothing wrong with that either. So, no, I don't think it even touches the show's credibility. I don't think it undermines the show at all. Star Trek has always been silly. It has always been fun. It has always been goofy. That has always been a tone that it has been able to shift into. It's not that all the time, but it has been that in every one of its incarnations from time to time since the beginning. So no, I don't have a single problem with it. I thought the musical episode was very good, and I'm generally not a fan of musicals. I thought the fucking Lower Decks crossover was great. And you know how I feel about Lower Decks. I'm not a fan of that show, but I thought the Strange New Worlds Lower Decks crossover episode was the best Lower Decks episode. I thought it was hilarious. I thought it was great. And I thought this most recent one was good, the one that just came out this week. I thought it was terrific. I don't think it was quite as good as those other two episodes I mentioned, I don't think it was like an all-time classic, but it was very good. I liked it a lot. It made me laugh. And if the puppet episode that was teased in the season 4 teaser, if that's also a good episode, that's all I care about. People who are like, does this undermine the series' credibility? They're taking it too seriously. They're taking it too seriously as a thing. Like, you should want it to be good. It doesn't need to be good as in serious and like self-serious and grave and somber and portentous and all this fucking other, fucking Zack Snyder DC Universe bullshit, right? It can be silly. It can embrace the goofier side of itself. That's completely fine, as long as it executes it in a way that is good, in a way that is successful, in a way that works. And as long as it does that, they can do all the fucking goofy episodes they want. General Contact Unit Problem Child. So imagine a new Trek thing came out where they revealed ever since the Federation was founded, Section 31 has been rigging elections to make sure pro-human leaders end up as Federation president. On top of that, they've been covertly interfering with the internal politics of other societies to make them think joining the Federation is a good idea. Basically, everything we've been told about the Federation since TOS is a lie, and it's really a human supremacist empire being covertly run by Section 31. If the series itself was good, would you be okay with that? You often speak disparagingly of Star Trek fans who reject otherwise good stories because they view it as out of step with what they view as what Star Trek should be. But if it was that an extreme break with past canon, like I said, establishing all past Trek was actually a dystopia under the surface, would you still be fine with it so long as the story was good? Like, you wouldn't say one good story isn't worth destroying the franchise? No, I'd be fine with it. I'd be fine with it. Because what a lot of people misunderstand about my feelings about canon and consistency and all that, when I watch an episode of Star Trek, the original series, I'm watching that episode on the terms that it is presenting to me. I'm not thinking about what may have been added to the lore of this episode by series that were made 10 and 15 and 20 and 30 and 40 years later, right? When I see, Captain Kirk in his quarters on TOS, I'm not thinking like, oh, gee, his quarters are so much smaller than Captain Pike's, Or if I see Captain Kirk fighting the Gorn in Arena, I'm not thinking, oh gosh, how did he's acting like it's the first time he's ever seen a Gorn. But I mean, we know that they had interactions with the Gorn previously because of Strange. Like, I'm watching the episode that I'm watching, and I'm accepting it on the terms that it's presenting itself. So I literally don't give a shit. If somebody makes a new Star Trek show that is good, that tells a compelling story, that makes a good point, and it recontextualizes like the entire history of the Federation so that, all of the previous, it doesn't really matter to me anyway, because we've barely even seen any elected officials in terms of the Federation. But if it's a good story, not only would I like it on its own terms if it was good, but in my mind, it would not change anything about the previous shows because they are what they are. Like, they're set in stone. They're finished. They're done. It's not like if there was a previous, like the fucking, I forget his name, but the guy who was shown to be the Federation president in Star Trek, let's say Star Trek 6, the Kurtwood Smith guy who was the president. But then, 30 years later, somebody made a Star Trek show that actually recontextualized that guy and said, actually, he was like a huge bastard, or he was part of a conspiracy, or he was corrupt, or he was a representative of a society that was not nearly as good as we thought it was. Okay, for that story that I just watched, that's how it is. But I'm not going to go back to Star Trek 6 and go, oh man, it's too bad they made this guy an asshole. They did make him an asshole. He's not an asshole in that movie. He's an asshole in the other thing. And yes, it refers to the same character, but it's fiction and it's flexible. And one thing is not necessarily the other thing. You know? So no, I can honestly tell you, as long as it was good, as long as the story I was watching was good and was compelling and was entertaining and thought-provoking and whatever else, I could not give less of a shit about canon or about, you know, quote unquote, ruining the Federation. You can't ruin the Federation for me. It's impossible. The only way you can ruin the Federation for me is to tell a story that sucks ass, that involves the Federation somehow, that fucks it up somehow. And even then, it would only be for that shitty story, not for anything else that I've liked. So no, I honestly don't give a shit. Make it a dystopia. Make a Star Trek story that reveals that the Federation has actually been a secret dystopia the whole time. If you execute it and it's good, I'll like it. And I'll also like other stuff in the past that looks at the Federation as a genuine utopia. And I will still take it on those terms because that's how fiction fucking works. For me, anyway. David K. Why a spoon, Steve? Why not a blade or an axe? I think you know the answer to that question. Actual question. Since when did credit card companies get to decide what games people can buy? Isn't it depressing and bizarre that a puritanical Australian anti-porn pressure group gets to de-index all queer and adult content from itch and Steam? Yeah, I'm not a gamer, so I don't really use Steam all that much. So this doesn't affect me personally, but I have heard about it. And yeah, it's bullshit. Of course it's bullshit. I can understand why gamers are pissed about it. They should be. And I hope that something is done and that it's reversed, because it's a shame and it sucks. It is depressing and bizarre. And it's bullshit. JDC has no idea how all this is supposed to work. I mean, I think you figured it out. Hey, Steve, your Star Trek Green Lantern video has me wondering, are there any good crossovers out there? I feel like I made it quite clear that I think the Star Trek Green Lantern crossover is good. It seems like rights issues have to keep the numbers down, and most of the story ends up devoted to how our heroes from different worlds meet. I love those old scientists, but the how and the why of the crossover was basically the whole story, and that's all within one franchise. Are there any crossovers out there that really have something to say that they couldn't have said without it? Kirk with a power ring is cool, but can a crossover be more than fan service? Yes. To me, the best crossovers in terms of that are the ones that just assume the two characters exist in the same world. Like in the 70s, there was a Superman Spider-Man crossover. In the 90s, there was a Batman Spider-Man crossover that I actually really like. I can't remember who wrote it, but I think it was drawn by Graham Nolan, who's like just one of my favorite comic artists ever. And there was no like interdimensional vortex. There was no, how are these characters? Like for the purposes of the story, they just exist in the same world. And Spider-Man and Batman find themselves working the same case and off we go. Right. So, and that's honestly, I mean, I like the way the Star Trek Green Lantern crossover did it, because I really like the let's just kill the entire DC universe to set this up conceit. Like, that's just so over the top that I have to hand it to them. But I mean, I would also love like a Superman Star Trek crossover where Superman just shows up on the Enterprise. No cross universe bullshit necessary. Superman's just there. I think I mentioned it in that video I made. Maybe Superman traveled through time to the future to visit his descendants on Earth, and the Enterprise happened to be there and they got involved somehow. Like, it doesn't need to be, just for the sake of the story, assume that Superman and Star Trek are in the same universe. Who fucking cares? So for that, I mean, crossovers like that, I think, then you can tell whatever story you want. Now, I can't think of any specific examples of a crossover that like had something really deep and important to say, because usually, even if they don't waste any time with exposition on how the characters are meeting each other, usually a crossover like that is just kind of a fun adventure to bring the characters together because it rides on the novelty of having two characters who don't normally interact. But I suppose you could, if you had a story that had a deeper meaning or a very important point to make, there's no reason why you couldn't use a crossover story to do that. Again, if you don't worry about the unimportant stuff, just put the two characters together for a reason that makes sense in the plot and in the story and just ignores all the fucking separate comic book universe horseshit and, just tell the story. John Day, are you a King Arthur fan? Not really. No, not really. Christy, what kind of childhood did you have in Maryland? I was born in Gainesville, Florida, and raised in Northwest Arkansas in an actual sundown town. Wow. And spent summers in Iowa. My husband was a quartermaster in the Navy, so we've been around. My husband is from Northwest Arkansas, so we came back here. My husband is a Republican, not MAGA. I'm independent Democrat leaning. So my husband and I agreed to disagree with our vote. We have an 18-year-old and an 18-year-old and 13-year-old daughters, and they remind him of his bad choice. Well, good for them. Love my Gen Zs who are Gen Xs mentally aware. I was 31 with my first and 36 with my second. Do you think by the time my 13-year-old is old enough to join the Navy, she will be allowed to? Boy, that's a heavy question. I mean, I hope she's allowed to if that's what she wants to do. Yeah, do I think? I don't know. Let's wait and see. I hope so. I really hope so. What kind of childhood did I have in Maryland? It was good. I had a good childhood. I had a perfectly fine childhood. I don't think it was any better or worse than anybody else's for having been in Maryland. Maryland for me was a wonderful place to grow up and is still in most ways a wonderful place to live. So, yeah. Hulk Hogan is immortal. That's what they used to say. Hey, Steve, it's John. I have about the same childhood pro wrestling timeline which you have. Like you, I'm immensely grateful to have it. There are seemingly an incalculable number of posts, videos, and memes going around. Let's all remember that Hulk Hogan is simply a comic book superhero character in live action format. Terry Gene Bollea portrayed the character. And indeed, when he was portraying the character, he did so immersively that it became etched into the collective consciousness of, at one point in time, realistically nearly half of all humanity aged 6 years old and above. However, indeed, he was a man, not the character which he portrayed. He was a man with flaws. All characters live on and are indeed immortal. Alas, all human beings die. Thus, your quote, I'm not sad that Hulk Hogan died. I'm sad that the man I thought he was never really lived, is at once evocating and haunting. However, in the end, let's face it, that song is an all-time #1 classic. I'll give you that completely. One of the all-time greatest pro wrestling theme songs. Real American. Absolutely. Did not fit the actual man at all, and I would argue did not actually fit the gimmick, or as you say, the character either. Like, I feel like I'm going to make a video about this one of these days. If you judge Hulk Hogan just purely by what he does on the wrestling show, and you take Terry Bollea, the real guy, out of it, and you're just judging him on what he does as a wrestler on the wrestling show, he's still a piece of shit. Even when he was a babyface. I'm not saying like when he turned heel in 1996 and joined the NWO. No, before that. He's a piece of shit. And I can cite you many examples of him being a piece of shit as a supposed babyface wrestler. He still got cheered. People still loved him. Mostly. Some people always thought he was a piece of shit. But anyway, I'll get around to that in another. There's not time to go into it now. But yeah, Hulk Hogan, the wrestling gimmick on the wrestling show, was also a piece of shit. Where do the quality voices go now? A Zack Snyder neophyte. Hiya, Steve. John again. Mr. Bollea's death aside, the submission I had planned to offer, PBS NPR being congressionally defunded, and the firing of Stephen Colbert as a backdrop. During the last Ask Away, in part of your response to my assertion that perhaps Stephen Colbert could possibly take his entire show's company to a platform such as Free Speech TV, you playfully scoffed, so no one will watch it? You're probably correct. I don't know the clearance rate of Free Speech TV or their viewership in general. This reality leads to the obvious question. Where should these much-needed properties end up? Do you think that an overtly left-aligned political social amalgamation of programs should attempt to start a streaming platform? If so, would you watch it? What would you feel a reasonable ad-free price point would be? Zack Snyder, last time you said he probably voted for Kamala Harris. What makes you think this? Seeing as I'm a novice, what does restore the Snyderverse even mean? Okay. There's a lot going on there. Where should those properties end up? I think with the continued fragmentation of the media landscape, and don't I sound smart when I say that? A lot of these show, like if Stephen, look what Conan O'Brien has done. Conan O'Brien ended his late night show on TBS. He had already started a podcast by that point, and now he devotes his full attention to his podcast with occasional breaks to go film his travel show for HBO Max. But he's mostly doing podcasts now. He produces his own show. He has his own studio. His company produces other podcasts now that are kind of in the same family. But that's like, I mean, that's his deal. And a lot of the big podcasters who have major, massive audiences are like that. I mean, they might be affiliated with a network here and there, like for advertising or for certain kinds of distribution, but like they do most of their production in-house. Like they're their own bosses, they're their own networks. And I think that kind of thing is probably going to continue to be more common. So if Stephen Colbert wants to continue doing something like a podcast or a YouTube show or something like that, he may do something similar to what Conan has done, and it will be available on, like Sirius FM or Sirius XM or, other streaming platforms, but he'll be producing it and making all the decisions about it himself. So I think something like that is probably more the future than like an alternative consolidated streaming platform. But we'll see. I mean, I'm not sure what's going to happen. I say Zack Snyder probably voted for Kamala Harris because from what I understand from people who know better than I do, his personal politics are fairly liberal, despite the truly stunning amount of fascist imagery in his movies. Like his personal politics are supposedly pretty liberal. So I assume if he voted for Harris. But I mean, I don't know that for a fact. And restore the Snyderverse means that some of Zack Snyder's most ardent, obsessed fans can't get over the fact that his DC Comics movies were not successful. That's what restore the Snyderverse means. Restore the Snyderverse means they want Warner Brothers to hire Zack Snyder to keep making DC Comics movies, even though they relieved him of that responsibility because they were not happy with how those movies were doing. In other words, they were commercial failures and critical failures as well. There's, most people after Man of Steel, the critical perception of the Zack Snyder movies really took a nosedive. And Man of Steel was by no means universally loved, but it was much more successful critically and commercially than the ones that followed it. So that's what restore the Snyderverse means. It means his more cultish admirers basically refusing to accept that anyone other than Zack Snyder is ever allowed to make Superman movies. Wolfram Hart, first-time caller. Is it too bad that there's no longer syndication anymore? Star Trek TNG ended up being a hit because of the way syndication worked, but was unusual for being a first-run show. But other shows started becoming a hit as well, even if still on the air. MacGyver, of course, but also the A-Team and other Stephen Cannell shows, Night Court, etc. I was reminded of the Dungeons and Dragons cartoon. Only 15 or so episodes, but played for over a decade after going off the air because it was so rewatchable. Was such a big hit in Brazil, they did a live-action car commercial with Wenger and Tiamat that looks like it could have been turned into a movie. I'm not going to watch that. Well, with MacGyver and the A-Team and Night Court, etc., they were in second-run syndication. And that still kind of exists. Like there is still, it's not quite the same as it used to be. It's a lot of it is, I mean, what used to be syndication is now more in the form of like second run on cable channels. Like you'll see the same, like the Big Bang Theory being rerun incessantly on TNT, for example. That's the kind of thing that would have been and still is syndicated. Like that kind of second run syndication still exists. It's just not nearly as popular as it used to be. But yeah, in terms of first run syndication, like Star Trek TNG and Deep Space Nine and Baywatch, and lots of other shows in the 80s and 90s and even into the early 2000s that were produced for syndication originally. Yeah, I don't know for a fact that it's completely dead, but it's certainly not nearly what it was in its heyday in the 90s. Is that a bad thing? Again, I don't know. I mean, how hard is it to sell a show? I guess it's always good to have another outlet. You know, it's always good to have another option for a show if you can't sell it to a cable channel or a network, to have first run syndication as a viable option. So I'd say, I guess in that sense, it's too bad that it's no longer available. Jim P. Hi, Steve. Really enjoyed your latest reviews of the new Superman and the new Fantastic Four movies. I noticed you never really do any theory videos about upcoming content that so many others do. Is there a reasoning behind that, or do you just not enjoy that type of content yourself? Have a great day. Have a great show. Thank you. I don't enjoy that kind of content myself, and I would have no idea how to make it, because how do you talk about a movie you haven't seen yet? So to me, those videos are just masturbatory, just, fan fiction disguised as theorizing. you know I'm not really that interested in fan theories in general. I'm not interested in fan theories from movies that people have seen and picked apart piece by piece. I don't give a shit about what you think it really meant, especially if it's just some pedantic lore based, fucking bullshit. No, I just don't find that interesting. And I don't know why would anybody care what I think is going to happen in a movie I haven't seen? Like, I don't even usually think in those terms. Like, someone in a previous question talked about people trying to outsmart the movie. And it seems like those kinds of theory videos are a form of trying to preemptively outsmart the movie. Like, before I saw Superman, I wasn't trying to guess what was going to happen in it. I mean, there were certain clues that you could pick up from trailers and what people said in interviews, but I wasn't trying to like forensically piece together the plot of the movie, because I didn't know. I didn't know what the movie was going to be about until I saw the movie. So how and why am I going to make a video about theorizing what's going to be in the movie if I haven't seen it? The whole thing, the whole enterprise strikes me as completely asinine and completely navel gazing and just pointless, nerd circle jerking. And I am not a fan of that at all. And like I said, I mean, most fan theories about movies and shows that have already come out that people have watched are literal minded, short sighted, nerdy bullshit. Like, oh, I bet that little boy whose parents were killed in the Batman is going to turn out to be Robin. What? Which is something that I heard a lot of people say. Oh, I bet he's going to turn out to be Robin. What the fuck are you talking about? Why? Because he's a kid whose parents are dead that Batman looked at? He's got to be Robin. What the fuck is wrong with you? But anyway, no, I don't watch those videos. I'm not going to make those videos. Matthias from YouTube. Just watching your old videos and wondered if your opinion of Archer committing genocide has changed over the years. I agree it was Phlox's ultra-negative projection that Archer was disagreeing with, not evolution, and the writers effed up the scene. In my opinion, to conclude Archer committed genocide is to give that civilization too little credit. Supplying a cure would be deciding that civilization's level of development was all they are capable of, that they should not aspire for an interstellar standard, and that their degree of social progress, including treatment of the mink, was sufficient. It would be to rob them of a baptism of fire moment that could define their contribution to the interstellar community. And if they didn't find a cure, then might be okay too. 50% of all Europeans died of the Black Death, but it resulted in positive change. Survivors grew richer through inheritance. Women owned land for the first time, and peasants demanded more pay. It would not have been right. It would not have been right to help us either. Well, you can say that in hindsight. But I think the point I was trying to make in that video is there is no hindsight. This is the present moment. And the choice you have is, do you help these people not go extinct when you easily could do that, or do you not? And I think in that situation, if you can help to save people's lives, you should do that. Instead of project, well, but what if they survive this and it makes them stronger in 1,000 years down there? I mean, you don't know what's going to happen. So yes, we can look back in retrospect and say, oh, the Black Death was actually a good thing in the long run. Okay. But we have hindsight that we can tell that allows us to say that. The people on that planet didn't have that, and Captain Archer didn't have that. So no, I don't think my opinion has changed. Although, to be fair, I don't think I've watched that episode since I did that video. So if I watched it again and had to think on it, maybe I would feel differently. But as of now, no, I don't feel any differently than I did before. M.W. Riddera. So James Gunn said in an interview that he likes Henry Cavill and is open to casting him in the DCU as someone other than Superman. I've seen a bunch of people saying they want Gunn to cast Cavill as Batman, and I am open to that, but only if Cavill Batman wears gray and blue and refers to his fists as his hammers of justice. That's right. I want Brave and the Bold Batman to get the modern live action adaptation he deserves. And no, I don't just want this because it will make those fans' heads explode. That's just a bonus. Anyway, if for some reason Henry Cavill had to be cast in a James Gunn DCU movie, but you got to decide what role he'd play, what would you choose? I would have him play Harold, the hunchback inventor who lives in the Batcave. I really like your idea of having him be just a big, goofy Silver Age Batman, though. That would be a lot of fun. And yes, it would make those fans' heads explode, which would not be the primary reason to do it, but would also be sufficient reason to do it. Isaiah Taylor, to fan or not to fan? So, Steve, why do people like us love things like Star Trek or Superman? Why do some of us cosplay some of our favorite characters? I was thinking about this after several rewatches of the 1996 film Twister, and I just discovered it has a fan base. I'm part of their Facebook group. In fact, I've seen YouTube vids and pictures on the internet of fans replicating that famous red 1995 Dodge Ram 2500 truck with Dorothy machines included. As you know, Steve, I fucking love Twister, so I don't blame these people. I love the soundtrack, Tori Amos, Alison Krauss, Stevie Nicks, Van Halen, may I go on? The portrayal of rural Oklahoma / Americana, the jittery atmosphere of anticipating a storm when the music swells, and the vividly horrifying showcase of Mother Nature, and Mark Mancina's ominous, adventurous, and ethereal score. That film got me into meteorology and storm chasing. What about Superman speaks to you, Steve? There are, I mean, it's tough to succinctly describe because part of it is like Star Trek. It got me when I was young. I discovered Superman when I was very young, and it feels like he has been with me ever since. And it's hard, I mean, who can say what, 4 or 5-year-old Steve saw in Superman that made me grab onto him and not want to let go? I'm attracted to heroes. I'm attracted to people who rise above, the temptation to do the wrong thing and choose to do the right thing. I'm attracted to nobility and sacrifice in characters. I find a great poignancy in comparing Superman to us, and you're looking at Superman as, a reminder of the kind of people we could be if we chose to do good as often as Superman does. I'm attracted to Superman for the fact that some of the most beautiful things about him are also some of the things that give him his weaknesses. Like he genuinely cares about people, and that can be exploited by evil people to hurt him or to manipulate him or to hold him back. And that creates amazing potential for storytelling. And it also makes him just a really compelling character. The idea of he's the most powerful man in the world. There's nothing he can't do. How do you hurt him? You hurt him through the people he cares about, or you put him in situations where he can't help everybody, like there's just something compelling about that as a story, in a storytelling way, and just emotionally. So, I mean, there's a million different things about Superman that speak to me. Agent Meister, who's gone from being the talk of the town to the whisper of the village. My condolences on your demotion. Peldor Joy Steve, if that is your real name. What is the most strenuous physical activity you have ever taken part in? For me, it was an Ironman triathlon. This little trifle involves in one sitting, by the way, a 2.4-mile swim, a 112-mile cycle on a regular bike, mind, none of your e-bikes here, thank you very much. And if you survive all that, you cap it off by running a marathon, 26.2 miles. I did 7 of these between 2010 and 2019. In each one, the second half of the run felt like a death march, and I would have gladly put a pistol in my mouth at several times during it. But I look back on that time in my life as a grand experience. Not only the taking part in these events, but the training for them also. And I learned a lot about myself. So feel free to lavish me with praise. I ask again, what is the most strenuous activity you've done? The criteria is that it was voluntary, preferably an activity that is generally recognized as a sport and not something like picking potatoes for 14 hours. To be completely honest with you, in terms of exercise, nothing I have ever done has been that strenuous. I've never played any kind of competitive sport. I've never run a marathon or participated in a triathlon or I've never done organized sports in any way at any level. So I don't really have an answer to your question. I mean, I've exercised by my own choice, and with just only myself as coach and, observer. Um, but I don't know if I would call any of that, at least not at this point, now that I've been doing it for a while, strenuous. I mean, when I do my cardio during the week, I do 20 miles in an hour. I do an hour straight nonstop on a stationary bike. That's strenuous in a sense, but I mean, it's not running a marathon after cycling and swimming. You know what I mean? Like it's not it's in a completely different category. Um, but that's the kind of exercise that I do and that I've always done, and I've never done anything all that strenuous. So I don't really have an answer to your question. I'm sorry. But I would like to lavish you with praise for doing 7 of those in 9 years. That's fantastic and good for you. Glenn H., I need to stop forgetting to post. Greetings, Mr. Shives. I have a hypothetical for you. Let's say after the precedent setting of the current Orange Menace, we get an even more authoritarian president who disbands Congress, ignores the Supreme Court, and generally abuses his power to achieve his agenda. But this time, his agenda is more progressive. He institutes universal health care, pushes the nation to reduce greenhouse emissions, enforces a progressive tax code, and recognizes the basic human rights of all people, regardless of nationality, sexual identity, or any norm divergent status. Would you be tempted to support a leader who would shred the Constitution but favors the ideals you support? I would suspect you might be more circumspect, but could you imagine a large portion of our population following such a leader? Or is this idea so absurd that it is fanciful? I look forward to your answer, and I promise a silly Star Trek question next time. Have a good show. I could imagine a large portion of the population following such a leader, and I do understand the superficial appeal of it, of course. And it might even be tempting after however many years of Trump, you know. But what you have to remember is what you are describing may seem superficially progressive, but by definition, it isn't. If the leader in question is a dictator who is not democratically elected, who is not accountable to the people or the law, who, as you say, has even gone so far as to disband the legislature and the courts, and it routinely abuses his power, that is not progressive. That is totalitarian, and totalitarianism is not progressive. Now, yeah, sure, is a totalitarian dictatorship with universal health care better than one without it? Yeah. But I mean, you say basic human rights of all people, regardless of nationality, sexual identity, or norm divergent status. What about the right to vote? We wouldn't have that, would we? What about the right to have a voice in what laws are passed that affect our lives? We wouldn't have that, would we? So, I mean, it wouldn't be basic human rights. It might be whatever rights we have that the leader decides we have afforded to all people, regardless of identity. Sure. And again, would that be better than it might be under another dictatorship that didn't have that? Sure. But it's not progressive. Fundamentally, by definition, it's not progressive. So no, I would not support it, or at least I would hope that I would not support it. But yes, I do think there are a great number of people who would, for all kinds of reasons. The grumpy monkey, though not so grumpy after seeing Superman 2025. How now, Steve? If you were a supervillain, what type of secret lair would you prefer? An elaborate cave or a hollowed out volcano? And please don't feel the need to limit your answer to 1,000 characters. Such stipulations only apply to us, the great unwashed among your patrons and members. P.S. I loved the new Superman movie. Perfect? Nah, but the best movie featuring the Man of Steel in a long time. WB High Command will need a thump up the hooter should they plan on rebooting the series again. If they're not happy with the critical and box office returns from this outing, I don't give a fig about extended universes anymore, but I would have absolutely no problem getting more adventures from Gunn, Cornsweet, and Brosnahan. Best Lois Lane ever. If there is to be a sequel, then can we please put villains like Lex and Zod aside for a while and serve up some of the other greats from Superman's Rogues Gallery, like Brainiac, Metallo, or Mongol? This concludes my presentation. I would want my supervillain lair to be in a treehouse. And I completely agree with you. Even though I love Nicholas Holt's Lex, I loved Terrence Stamp's Zod, and I have no quarrel with either of those characters. Yes, I would love a big screen live action Brainiac. My God, would I love that. A big, silly Silver Age, city shrinking and bottling Brainiac. I would love to see that. Absolutely. Andy Lawler thinks it's a damn shame we'll never see the Epstein files, but at least Gazans are still being murdered in droves. See, that's what I like about you. You always look on the bright side. Hey, Steve, I'm listening to the late seating uncut ep on Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind. I agree with Jason's take that erasing relationships is contrary to human nature. However, the technology in the film would be a welcome tool. I was a firefighter paramedic for 21 years, and I've been in therapy for 14 years to process some of the things I experienced on the job. Erasing specific events would be life-changing for first responders and combat veterans. If I could wake up one morning and not remember what I call my year of dead children, no, I will not elaborate, I would sign up yesterday. Is there a technology from fiction that you'd like to see become real? Something smaller and more narrowly impactful than warp drive, holodecks, or replicators that would make your life better in a fundamental way? Thanks, and have a great weekend, everybody. I don't know. Is there a fictional kind of grass that you can just plant and you never have to cut it? Because if there's not, I'm inventing it now and I'm choosing that. just a lawn that you can you set it at whatever height you want it, and it just sort of stays that way. That's what I would like. That would make my life as I'm living it right now in this moment significantly better. Yes. Simon Moody. Hey, Steve, you said many times that you live in an area where the significant majority does not have the same political leanings as you do. I could say something very similar for most of the places I've lived. Does that impact you on a basic human level? Do you feel, especially since things in the U.S. cranked up to the hyper-partisan levels of the last decade or so, like living in an area that disagrees with you adds a sort of quiet little black cloud that just sits there in the back of your brain? Or being such a local is not a thing? It's not a thing unless something directly brings it to the forefront. I ask, in part, to get more of a feel for the U.S. and how similar and not to the UK, but also to understand how other people are wired. It's a little bit of a bummer, like if I think about it, but fortunately, as I go through my day-to-day life, I am not usually prompted to think about it. So it doesn't affect my life on a daily basis in a significant way. But when I think about it, when I'm reminded of it, and when election time rolls around and I have to worry about whether or not I'm going to be represented in Congress or in my state legislature by a fascist or a fascist enabler, then it becomes nerve-wracking and it becomes worrying and it weighs on me, But other than that, on a day-to-day basis, thankfully, it usually doesn't encroach on my life. Kara the Tolkien Nerd. Hi, Steve. I'm sorry to say that I loathe Strange New Worlds with a passion, and nothing will induce me to watch any episodes. If you haven't watched any episodes, how do you know you don't like it? Now, with the movie version of Section 31 and this new TV series, Starfleet Academy, I'm seeing a lot of, do you call them memes, to things called nostalgia bait and member berries. And while this new TV series looks terrible, sorry, Steve, there hasn't been any really good Star Trek since DS9, for all that I loved Voyager, but that was mainly because it was a female captain. But to get back to my main question, could someone really explain what the hell member berries actually are? Would really appreciate a simple and succinct explanation of this because it's confusing the hell out of me. I mean, it seems to show up a lot with regards to Star Trek, but I would really like a simple explanation. Hope I haven't bored you too much. No, it's a good question. So a member berry is basically anything in a story that is only there to trigger nostalgia, right? We get the name comes from, there's a South Park episode from several years ago that didn't introduce the concept, but introduced this particular conception of it, where there's literal member berries in the South Park episode. They're like blueberries that talk, and they just remind people of stuff that they liked from long ago. That's what they do, and it gives the people like a little bit of a euphoria, you know, like the member berry will say, "Remember Chewbacca?" Or member. They don't say remember. They say remember Chewbacca, remember Han Solo, and people hear that and they go, "Oh yeah, wasn't that nice?" You know, that's a member berry. It's something in a story that all it does is remind you of something from the past that you liked, and that's it. And yes, there have been, especially in um, Star Trek Picard and Lower Decks, and even unfortunately, especially in the last episode, especially in one particular scene in the last episode in Discovery, where it was just like member berry, member berry, member berry. And it's lazy and it's dumb and it's obnoxious and it's uncreative and I hate it. But I really like Strange New Worlds, so we will disagree on that. Joe McClory, I know a lot of people haven't seen Superman yet, so I will try to talk about the blink and you miss it moment that gutted me when I watched it without too many spoilers. As the movie is wrapping up, there's a moment where we see a story Kent wrote about the real hero of the event. The fact that this Superman not only tries to save everyone he can, even squirrels, but it impacts him when he can't. And not just in that moment, but enough later with everything else going on that he wrote a story about a guy who stood up to a bully. I'm getting worked up just thinking about it as I write the question. I had no idea how much I needed a movie like this right now. I rewatched the 78 film, and it is great. But after my second viewing of the new film, it is my favorite Superman movie, and it's not even all that close. Did you notice this bit? Can you gush about the movie more? I would love. I saw it for the fifth time today. I love the moment you're talking about. I did notice it. It's a beautiful moment. The moment that I referred to earlier when David Colby asked me about my favorite moment in the movie, there's a visual, and I'll do this without spoilers as much as I can as well. There's a visual in the movie where Superman has been a building is collapsing and Superman is holding up the building before it completely collapses so that one woman in a car who was going to be crushed by the building can get away. And then after the woman gets away, the building, because the physics in the movie are not quite, it's reminiscent of a bit from from the first Fleischer Brothers Superman cartoon, where the mad scientist knocks over a building and Superman flies in and like catches the building before it hits the ground and pushes it back up and kind of sits it back up like the building is just all in one piece and the building doesn't, it's cartoon physics, right? The physics in the Superman movie are not nearly that cartoony, but Superman is able to keep the building from collapsing all the way until this car can get out of the way. And then it crumbles around him and it collapses in this huge pile of dust and debris. And in the distance, as the woman drives away, you see back far away in the city as she's driving away from it, Superman flying and rising up out of the rubble. And it's just such it's a beautiful image of Superman. And it's a beautiful moment because he did that to save one person. And yeah, it again, like we were talking about earlier with this kind of storytelling, showing you who people are. We've already seen him save the little girl. We've already seen him save the squirrel. We've already seen that he cares about individual people and individual lives, that he will go out of his way to save them if possible. But that just majestic, beautiful moment. And it's in the aftermath of Superman going to all that trouble to save one person. It's extraordinary. It's beautiful. It's just beautiful. So yeah, I mean, I love it. I love it. I love that movie so much. Damian Williams, Steve, I'm a big fan of the Star Trek Adventures role-playing game. Can you give me a few episodes that I could rip off or draw inspiration from for the crew of our ship to adventure on? I refuse to use the Borg. I'm not a Voyager writer. Time loop episodes are fun. The cause and effect, the TNG episode where the Enterprise keeps getting destroyed over and over and over again until the crew can figure out what's causing it and break the cycle. There's a couple, and there's a bunch of time loop episodes that various shows have done over the years. Time loops are fun. Alternate universes are fun. Alternate history, like I mentioned earlier, yesterday's Enterprise. Something happens in the past that changes the present, and everybody is themselves, but slightly different versions of themselves. I can imagine that might be fun to do in a role-playing game if you thought role-playing games were fun, which I don't, but you do. So maybe that would appeal to you and your group. But yeah, stuff like that. Stuff like that lets you sort of play with the concept. You know, time loops, alternate realities, excuses to play alternate versions of your regular characters, that kind of stuff. Oasis. Hi, Steve. Cutting right to the chase. I'm sure you heard about or saw Triple H with Trump. Yeah. Needless to say, I'm frustrated. Part of me feels like I can't support WWE because of this, but I also don't really like many of the alternatives outside of TNA. Am I overreacting? No, not at all. After Trump got elected the first time, I didn't watch WWE for like 4 or 5 years. So no, you're not overreacting at all. I'm not reacting more strongly to it than I am just because I feel like, you know what? It's nothing I didn't already know. And I mean, it sucks. I wish it was not the case. I wish the company did not capitulate to Trump. But it is what it is. And there are wrestlers working for that company that I really support and that I know don't support Trump, like CM Punk, like Sami Zayn, you know, and like, why should I deprive myself of the entertainment of watching them perform and knowing that they are on the right side of history? You know, I mean, so, but no, I don't think you're overreacting. And if you decide, fuck it, I'm not watching WWE anymore because of this, I support that 100%. I think that's a completely reasonable thing to do. As for what you're going to watch instead, I mean, you're right. That's the thing. I mean, like a lot of people, well, not a lot of people, actually, an ever shrinking number of people might say AEW. That's a matter of taste. I was a huge fan of AEW when it started. And then by the time I stopped watching it about 2 or 3 years ago, I could no longer stand it. I found it unwatchable. And when CM Punk was finally fired, first Cody left, and that kind of took a lot of the wind out of the sail for me because he was my favorite. And then CM Punk got fired, and I thought, okay, fuck this place. I mean, if all you care about is a wrestling show that is not as offensive politically as WWE is behind the scenes, then AEW is certainly a much better choice. But in terms of the actual on-screen wrestling product, I mean, at least to my taste, I can't speak for how it's been lately, although based on the recaps I've read, it hasn't gotten any better. But I can say when I stopped watching it, the main reason I stopped watching it was because after CM Punk was gone, there was no more reason for me to watch it. Because I was not a fan of the style of wrestling they were doing. I was not a fan of the storytelling. And the few people that were left in that company that I liked and thought were good wrestlers and would have watched under different circumstances were not being used in ways that I was entertained by. And I didn't see any prospect for that changing. So I stopped watching it, and I haven't watched it since, with the exception of an odd match here and there that somebody told me about. So no, I mean, I feel for you. I don't know what you're going to do. If you do decide that you can't watch WWE anymore, I don't know. Hopefully there's like an indie with a YouTube channel that you can find somewhere that you'll like better. Siamak, who is submitting late but has no question, but I'm here. And Steve, I wanted to tell you, you're doing great. Keep it up. Thanks, buddy. Thank you. That makes me feel good. I just want to tell you, what did Leslie Nielsen say in Airplane? I just wanted to tell you both, good luck. We're all counting on you. Matthias, hi, Steve. So I'm familiar with writing terms such as protagonist, antagonist, suspension of disbelief, but what does it mean to be a breakout character? And who are the breakout characters in each Star Trek series and film? Oh, look, I'm not going to go through every Star Trek series and film. That's way too much, especially after I've been answering questions for almost an hour and a half. But I will say a breakout character is a little bit less formal of a term. Protagonist, antagonist, suspension of disbelief, these are relatively formalized writing terms. Breakout character is more of is a more recent concept, and it's more informal. And a breakout character basically refers to a character in the supporting cast, or maybe a recurring character in a movie or a TV show, or maybe a comic book, or any kind of story really that has like a cast of characters, and usually like a serialized story. Um, a character that is not meant to be that important of a character, or not meant to be that prominent of a character, but becomes more so because the audience reacts to them so positively. Right. So like the classic example would be Steve Urkel from Family Matters, where when Family Matters first started, Steve Urkel was just like the wacky neighbor, but he became such a breakout character that eventually he just took over the show. Now, not all breakout characters do that, but that's like an extreme example of what a breakout character is. Supposed to be just a supporting character, just part of the ensemble to add a little flavor, and ends up like the center of the universe. As far as Star Trek, I think you could argue that Spock is the breakout character. Although that's a little more complicated because he was also the co-lead from the very beginning. And you could argue, could a co-lead qualify as a breakout character? Maybe, maybe not. On Deep Space Nine, there are multiple breakout characters on Deep Space Nine. You could say Garrick is definitely one. You could say Rom is one. You could say, in later seasons, even Damar is kind of one, you know? What else? What would be another good example from Star Trek? Again, in Next Gen, Data to an extent, but again, Data was as written. Data was always going to be an important character, and he never really like. Maybe Seven of Nine in Voyager, but again, like she was supposed to be an important character from the start. It's hard with Star Trek. It's hard to parse, like genuine breakout characters and characters who were intended to be important and then took off like the creators hoped they would, you know? Like I've used the term breakout character very loosely to refer to like Seven of Nine or Spock. I think maybe in the new Superman movie, you could say Mr. Terrific, if you use it in a very loose, informal way. But that's basically what it means. A supporting character that takes an outsized role because the audience just absolutely loves them. Russell, hey Steve, how are you? First, you don't have to answer this one. But do you ever feel the older you get that time moves faster and faster? Yes, I know exactly what feeling you're talking about. Anyways, happy Friday. Let's delve into NYPD Blue. I may use my member question to complete this one. I recently watched an older episode in season 5 titled It Takes a Village. This episode is one of the rare cases that has Simone partnered with Kirkendall on a robbery homicide done by teenagers, and Sipowicz and Russell investigate a sexual assault of a 9-year-old. Also, she was beaten during the attack. At first, the kid thanks to the mother, blames another kid with Down syndrome, but the detectives quickly rule that out. Enter the scumbag played by a great actor, mind you, Enterprise's John Billingsley. I think I remember this episode, who was Phlox. The victim IDs him in a lineup, and Sipowicz slaps him a total of 3 times before he confesses. The scene, in my opinion, is great. My question is, when he says, "You beat me because you want to," and Andy goes, "Yeah, I want to," do you feel bad for the scumbag? I'll answer that part now. No, I don't. And I'll get around to the larger point I think you're getting at after the second part of your question. Part two of 2 of my thoughts and questions. Yes, it's fictional, but most of these case stories were written by real life police detective Bill Clark. This was late 90s. Cameras weren't everywhere. Also, in this narrative, he did it. Do we feel bad that he got slapped 3 times and is going to spend the rest of his life in prison? I don't. There's a lot of room for argument why that should never work, mainly because innocent people go to prison for crimes they didn't do, and we are evolving. We do live in a recorded society now. Also, DNA would have convicted him anyways. Basically, general thoughts on the episode, and let's put this in late 90s situation as if it really happened. Would you care that Andy smacked him 3 times to get the confession? In this case, had a lot of debate about this with friends. Just curious on yours. See you shortly. Well, if we're talking about it in the context of a show, as a drama, no, I have no problem with it whatsoever. If we're talking about it as if it was really happening, yes, I have a huge problem with it. I have a huge problem with it on moral grounds because I don't think cops should be hitting people, even guilty people, even people who are guilty of terrible crimes. That's one, just as a moral objection. I just don't think cops should be fucking abusing people. And second, if the guy could prove or even convince a jury that a cop had smacked him around during the interrogation where he confessed, then the case could get thrown out. And then this guilty guy who sexually assaulted a child goes free. So when cops do that, not only are they violating the rights of people who have been arrested, they're also jeopardizing cases against people who might be guilty of terrible crimes. So to me, in real life, cops abusing suspects is indefensible on any level. Now, by the way, none of that means I feel bad for that specific guy. If we're talking about like a real guy who was a child molester, do I feel bad for him that he got the shit kicked out of him by a cop? No. Fuck that guy. I don't give a fuck what happens to that guy. He could get run over by a bus for all I care. Fuck him. He's garbage. But that doesn't mean I think a cop should be hitting him. You see what I'm saying? It's just like the death penalty. If do I feel bad that Ted Bundy was executed? No, fuck Ted Bundy. If there's a hell, I hope he's there. But does that mean I am morally and ethically and ideologically opposed to the death penalty? Doesn't mean I feel bad for every piece of shit that gets executed, but I just don't think that's a thing that should happen in general, as a rule. So those are my thoughts. Rusty Ronan. Yo, Steve. All right, I almost didn't get this sent, so I'll just get right to the point. I enjoyed your review of Barton Fink, so I just have to ask you, what is your opinion on The Man Who Wasn't There? To me, it is the most unique noir film ever made, and I got to say, it is one of the best noir films of all time. Definitely the most underappreciated Coen Brothers film, in my opinion. I hope you have seen it because I would love to hear what you think about it. Thanks. Until next time. I have seen it. I think it's a great film. I don't know if I would go so far as one of the greatest film noirs of all time. I feel like that's overselling it a bit, but it's really good. I like it a lot. I'm a big fan of Billy Bob Thornton, and he's the lead in that, of course. And it's, shot in black and white, and it's the Coen brothers, and it's great. And I do think it is probably one of their more underappreciated films. It doesn't often get mentioned with, their sort of filmography, but no, it's a terrific movie. I like it a lot. I wouldn't go so far as to say one of the best film noirs ever, but I like it a lot. Air One Fire, leader of the Wiener Patrol. Hi, Steve. What do you think about Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2? Do you think Yondu and his relationship with what's-his-face? Star-Lord, the protagonist of the film, is established well enough for that final scene? Do you think Ego was a good villain? Hope that counts as one question. Best wishes. P.S. EI is an acceptable ethnic variant. Duly noted. I love Guardians Volume 2. Absolutely. I think it's terrific. And yes, I think Yondu and Peter's relationship is easily well established enough for that final scene to work, and I think it works very well. And I think Ego is a terrific villain, and I think Kurt Russell plays him wonderfully. Yes, I think Guardians Volume 2 is fantastic. I love Guardians Volume 2. And okay, 2 questions left, everybody. First one from Anti-Pope Donkulus I. Bless you, my child, and all that shit. It seems a lot of Star Trek fans are really upset about Paul Wesley's over-the-top William Shatner impression in the latest Strange New Worlds episode. Many claim that it was disrespectful and or mean-spirited. In my life, I've learned that one of the most important things is the ability to laugh at oneself. Everybody else is, so you probably ought to join in the fun. Second to that, though, is the ability to poke fun at the things you love. Third, of course, is giving yourself permission to laugh at William Shatner. Seriously, he's a rich and famous old white guy. This is not punching down. I love TOS, but it is also fucking ridiculous, and Shatner's performance is a big reason why. Anyhow, could you comment on this as Stuffy doing his best/worst Captain Kirk impression? I can do you one better. I happen to have Stuffy online with me right here. Hi, Stuff.
Hi, Steve. So what am I doing?
Oh, okay. So Pope Donculus here, anti-Pope Donculus, excuse me, wants you to comment on Paul Wesley's William Shatner impression in the latest Strange New Worlds episode, but do so while doing your best Captain Kirk impression. Okay?
Okay, I think I've got it. Okay. I agree with the premise that self-deprecating humor is very important to a person's emotional and psychological health. We need the ability to laugh at ourselves, to not take ourselves or our passionate interests too seriously. Otherwise, life would be nothing but non-stop drudgery, and it would be difficult to stomach. How's that? Is that good enough?
I think that'll do. Yeah, I think that'll do. Thank you, Stuffy. And last question from Captain. Hello, Steve. Thought I'd keep it light today. Are you a Knight Rider fan? I always thought MacGyver and Knight Rider were close parallels, except MacGyver would MacGyver his way out of problems, defeat the bad guy maybe with a punch, don't forget to shake out his hand afterward because that hurts, succeed on his mission, and end with smiles and head pats. Michael or Kit would techno-gizmo his way out of problems, defeat the bad guy in a macho manner, then get the hot girl in the end. MacGyver was just a whole lot more wholesome. He was the nerdy hero. Thoughts? Happy Friday, your friendly neighborhood captain. I love Knight Rider. My favorite part about Knight Rider is getting to yell at the episode every time he gets out of the car. Why is he getting out of the car? If you are fighting crime in an indestructible car, why are you getting out of the car? But no, I love Knight Rider. And MacGyver and Knight Rider are very similar shows. They're kind of in the same genre, along with like the A-Team and Airwolf and other sort of, action adventure shows from the 80s that had a gimmick, right? There's like a clearly definable gimmick, whether it's a trademark vehicle or in MacGyver's case, he's the inventive guy. He thinks his way out of his problems. So they're very similar shows in that sense. And I love them both. I'm a huge fan of Knight. I have both MacGyver and Knight Rider full series collections on Blu-ray, and I am a massive fan of both shows. Absolutely. Well, I hope I didn't spoil your appetite for Stuffy with Stuffy's recent cameo appearance just now doing his William Shatner impression. But now that I have gotten all the way through all of those patron and member questions, it is time for a brand new Stuffy and Friends short. Now, this is a video that will go up as a standalone YouTube short on this channel tomorrow, but because you have been good enough to watch this live stream with me and listen to me answer all of those questions that were submitted ahead of time by my wonderful patrons and channel members, as a little reward, as a little bonus, before anybody else, you get to see this brand new Stuffy and Friends short. So please do enjoy.
Man says to his wife, "Is sex with me a chore for you?" The wife says back, "Not at all. I'm satisfied when I'm done me chores." Ha!
That's pretty good.
Yeah, this woman's acidulated attitude toward her husband's carnal incompetence is quite amusing.
What is it, Stuffy?
Oh, nothing. Never mind.
No, come on.
It's just that was one of Mamie's favorite jokes.
Oh my God!
What?
How has Stuffy offended you this time?
You just can't help yourself, can you? You have to throw it in my face.
Who the hell is Mamie? Your ex-wife?
You know my ex-wife.
Your current wife, then?
Go ahead. I know you're dying to tell them. We can't have a conversation about anything without you dropping her name.
Which is why Jack and Hans have no idea who we're talking about, even though I've known them both for many years.
Stuffy used to be friends with Babe Ruth's sister. There. I put it out there for you. Now, go ahead. Do what you always do. Brag.
Mamie was Babe Ruth's little sister, and she lived here in Hagerstown. I met her while I was going door to door collecting donations to save the railroad roundhouse. We hit it off right away. She invited me back for tea, and I didn't even realize whose sister she was until my third visit. She was just a nice, elderly lady who I enjoyed listening to and spending time with.
Good lad. Those who are near death often have the most expansive view of life.
Uh-huh. And after you realized your 90-something new bestie was the sister of the greatest baseball player of all time, you invited me over to meet her how many times? Was it 0? Was it 0 times, Stuffy?
I only knew her for a little over a year before she died. She seemed to value her privacy. It didn't feel right to just start bringing my friends around. Besides, she died over 30 years ago. Don't you think you should get over it at some point? I got over not meeting your screenwriting professor who was a co-producer on Intruder. You knew how much I liked that movie, but you never introduced us.
He's a human being, Stuffy, not a freak to be gawked at.
Who the hell is Babe Ruth? A legend in the sport of baseball. Weren't you paying attention? No.
Good old Stuffy. So, while I reboot the YouTube live chat viewer, which has crapped out on me yet again, let me acknowledge some super chats that were sent in while I was answering the patron and member questions. First of all, Kirok sent me one earlier right when the stream started, just to let me know about his question submission. So thank you for that, Kirok. Here's one from Bozeman42 who said, "Hello, enjoy your stuff. I believe the algorithm first showed me your Why Should I Be Mad About It sketch. I enjoy both your entertainment and political content. Thanks, from the home of MacGyver." Lots of MacGyver comments this time around. I have to say I appreciate that. I dig that. And thank you very much for the super chat, Bozeman. Windwalker57 also dropped in a super chat. Thank you very much. Says, Vulcan lifespan is interesting for plot. Tuvok's first posting was to Excelsior in 2293. He served until at least 2401, over 100 years. Could be a series following the life of a Vulcan in Starfleet, a la Forrest Gump. I mean, I'm sure Tim Russ would be up for it. Super chat from Prairie Fire, thank you very much, says, I'd like to see a Star Trek series where the Department of Temporal Investigations are up against Section 31. I feel like there's story potential there. Also, what does God need with a starship? I mean, it's kind of like how Superman had an airplane in the 80s during the Incredible Superpowers show. I think it's just sometimes he likes to take a rest. He just doesn't want to keep doing his own flying. So with God, I think it's kind of the same thing. Debbie Bannister of the super chat, no message, just a super chat. Thank you, Debbie, very much. I appreciate it. Member message from Donkey Hody says, no question, you've got to be talked out by now. Going to see Fantastic Four over the weekend and Chicago, the band, next Tuesday. Well, good luck on both of those. I've never seen Chicago live, but I did see Fantastic Four and I liked it a lot. So hopefully you will too. Another member message from Damian Williams. Thank you very much, my friend. Says, with things so shitty politically these days, I tried to use my member questions for some silly Star Trek related question, usually with a dig at Voyager. I appreciate that. And here's a super chat from Stephen G. Clenard. What would you want to see in a MacGyver Knight Rider crossover? What would you name MacGyver's Cyber Jeep? And what actor would you like to voice it? I would name the Cyber Jeep Harry after MacGyver's grandpa, and I would like to voice it myself doing my John Anderson impression. That's what I would. That's my answer to that question. I don't usually fantasy cast myself, but I feel like my John Anderson is strong enough that I could do that. And here's one from Agent Meister, just came in. Thank you very much as well for your contribution, my friend. Geez Louise, that was a long Q&A. I know there were 43 questions that time. I believe that's the record. Anywho, what's your favorite Powers booth performance? Ooh, good question. Wow. The one that comes immediately to mind is him as Curly Bill in Tombstone. But there must be a better one than that, because he was in so many things. He had such a long, great career. But Curly Bill in Tombstone is the one that jumps right to the front of my mind. All right, let me see what I missed in the live chat here. Black Cover 95 says, Babe Ruth's sister. Really? What a lore drop. Okay, so Babe Ruth's sister did actually live in Hagerstown at the end of her life. That part is true. I never knew her. I never met her. But that part is taken from real life. Babe Ruth's sister did live in my town at the end of her life. And my screenwriting teacher in college was also actually a producer on the movie Intruder. So that's also true. So there's a little bit of, of kind of true things sprinkled into that one. Yeah, on 255. I just answered that. Yes. Mamie Ruth. Yes, she lived in Hagerstown. She lived to be, I think she lived to be like 99 years old. She lived to a nice ripe old age. Black Cover 95 says, "Hi, Steve. I know you talked about issues with Voyager's in-universe logistics. Sadly, I can't find the stream where you spoke of the changes you'd make if you ran the show. Can you give a quick rundown?" Changes I'd make to Voyager? I mean, the main change I would make would just be there would be events would have more impact from one episode to another. It would be from episode to episode, it would be more like Deep Space Nine, where it wouldn't be serialized. It wouldn't be like each episode was a chapter of a book. Each episode would still be standalone and self-contained, but the characters would have memories from episode to episode. And there would be more season-long character arcs and even series-long character arcs. And they would feel like they were far from home more often. They would feel the weight of their predicament more often. Like it would take more, and there would be more stories that were derived from their limited and shrinking resources. We do stories about how they would do things to get fuel or to get food, or to make alliances with people so they could have trading partners or story that would come naturally out of the situation. There would be more conflict between the crew. The Maquis and the Starfleet people would not just suddenly start getting along for the most part right away. The Maquis people would not be in Starfleet uniforms. That's just a small little visual thing that I would have done right away. Don't put the fucking Maquis people in Starfleet uniforms. If you start a show out with two different groups, don't make them visually the same group right away. It just doesn't make any sense. There will be more long-term tension between the Starfleet crew and the Maquis crew. Just all kinds of just stuff that would maintain some of the promising things that were introduced in the very excellent pilot. That's basically the kind of changes I would make. Damian Williams with a super chat. "I just screamed Curly Bill across my store." Yeah, buddy. Air One Fire says, "How do you know who MacGyver's grandpa is if you only saw him in one episode?" He was in several episodes, my friend. Grandpa Harry was in at least 2 or 3, maybe even 4 episodes. There was the first episode that introduced him when MacGyver was being hunted by Axminster in season 1. There's the episode, I think it's season 2, when they're going to a hockey game and MacGyver forgets his hockey tickets at the office at the Phoenix Foundation. And it just so happens to be the night that the office is being infiltrated by a gang of terrorists. So there's like a little mini Die Hard episode. And the reason that MacGyver is at the office that night is because he wants his hockey tickets, and him and his grandpa get involved in it. And there's at least one more episode, I think, before Harry, and then there's the one where Harry dies and MacGyver meets him on the ghost ship. So yeah, I think he was in at least 3, possibly 4 episodes. And he was played by John Anderson, who is an actor that I know very well from other roles as well. Philip Kehoe says, "I saw someone today note how Rachel Brosnahan's Lois is never saved by Superman in the movie." That is correct. In fact, Superman is saved by her. 255 AD says, Tyler Hecklin or David Corenswet? Who's the better soups? Corenswet. Isaiah says, "Hope to watch Superman 2025 next weekend. Saw Superman 1978. Such a great film. Saw it for the first time back in 2006 and loved it then." I'm so glad, my friend. Yeah, I love that movie. Some Random Geek says, R.I.P. Tom Lear. Yes, 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 absolutely. One of the great satirists of the latter half of the 20th century. One of the greatest musical satirists ever. 225 AD says, going back to my question, do you think it would be good to have like Star Trek Elseworlds? Like you could do that dystopia thing without it affecting the rest of continuity? I guess, if that's what people need to feel good about it. I mean, I don't really think it's necessary because I view stories as, you know, their own things anyway. I don't really think an Elseworlds is necessary. I don't think Elseworlds is necessary in comics. Like if you do a Batman story that's like radically different from the mainstream Batman books, like I'll get it. You don't need to put a little stamp on it that says, by the way, this is different. I'll get it. I'll just read the fucking story. I'll get it. But sure, Star Trek Elseworlds. Yeah, if that's what people need to give themselves the creative freedom to do what they could do anyway, then sure. What do you think happened to the Jem'Hadar after the? This is Aid Trance. What do you think happened to the Jem'Hadar after the Dominion War? Did they get independence from the Dominion, or are they still very much a part of it as the? I think they're still whatever they were before. I think they're still, you know, genetically engineered soldiers. Although it would be kind of funny if like it had flipped, you know, like now somehow improbably the Jem'Hadar are at the top of the pile. Oh, Black Cover 95 about the Voyager thing. Yes, no holodeck. That's a yes. Yeah, there would be no holodeck on Voyager at all. Yeah. Joe McClory says, New Superman cares deeply about life, but doesn't seem to care about property, a thing I like better than 78. Should he care about stuff? I mean, he shouldn't care about stuff as much as he cares about life. I don't have a problem with Superman trying to save property if there's time for that or if there's room for that in his mission, but like I don't think he should prioritize it because I think the way it's handled in the movie is just perfect. And also, I mean, just as a story, as a storytelling device and just as an audience member, am I interested in watching Superman like save people's cars or save buildings? No, I don't give a shit. Like it occurred to me when I was watching the movie today. We care about when the big I'll try to be as non-spoileristic. When the big thing that threatens the city is happening, we're not meant to care about the buildings. We're meant to care about the people. It's a tragedy and it's dangerous, and we're supposed to want Superman to stop it because we care about the people in the city, not the buildings, not the stuff, right? That's what has emotional weight. That's what's dramatic. That's what matters, you know? So like, I'm not opposed to Superman caring about preventing property damage, but it should be way less important to Superman, and it's way less interesting and less compelling dramatically. Super chat from Kirok. Thank you, my friend. And it says 1 of 2. So I'll wait for the second one. Hey, Steve, do you remember that episode? And yes, I didn't talk much on it, but did you think about the Simone Kirkendall arc where these teenagers and then where's the rest of it? Are given up by their own drug dealing cash in on the reward mother. Such a powerful episode. Also, I too am against capital punishment. I mean, I kind of remember that episode. I don't remember it super clearly, so I'll take your word for what happens. Oh, Damian Williams, that's a good point too. Yeah, Kelvinverse is kind of an Elseworlds. And Mirror Universe to an extent, yeah. Even though, I mean, characters from the main universe interact with the Mirror Universe all the time in those stories, and usually like mainline DC versions of the characters don't interact with Elseworlds. But yeah, same kind of thing. It's like an alternate universe where the rules are different. Oh, Jon Stewart, yes. The ghost ship episode of MacGyver, when MacGyver's trying to get off the ghost ship and they put in the sound of the defibrillator as he rappelled down the ship. Yeah, that's such a great corny episode. Oh, such a great corny episode. Some Random Geek says, do you agree with the statement fighting against capitalism is like ramming your head into a sledgehammer? Yes, in the sense that, I mean, I think it probably feels that way. Wouldn't you agree? Hopefully in the long run, it's not as futile as that. But in terms of like how painful it is and how little like immediate progress you appear to be making, I think that's probably a good metaphor. William Tucker says, I wonder why you don't do this every Friday. It's so fun. Nifty way to end the week. Because I don't have the stamina to do it every Friday. Like, look, I love doing these live streams. I love this one in particular. Like, I love interacting with you guys. I love answering questions from patrons and members. Like, I really have a great time doing Ask Away, and I hope that comes across. But also, I also really like the Fridays where I don't do it. Like, I really like having a Friday where, oh, I don't have a live stream tonight. I can just relax. I can go somewhere and do something, or I can sit on my ass and just watch a movie or go to bed early or whatever. Like, I love doing it. And I also love not doing it. So this is the perfect balance. One Friday I do it. The next Friday I don't. The Friday after that I do it. I think it's worked out really well. Kirog with another super chat. Thank you very much, my friend. Says, I got to prepare you, my friend. My next Q&A will revolve around your review on Basics and your comparison to Basics to Voyager. Just heads up. Okay. I mean, okay. Like, oh no! Like, thanks for the warning. I mean, I think whatever your question is, I'll be able to handle it. But I appreciate the heads up. Thank you. Black Cover 95 says, I'm not formally arguing with you, but it's a shame you'd nix the holodeck in Voyager. Bride of Chaotica is one of the few eps I've seen, and I love it. Well, that's the thing. I mean, I love that episode too. I've reviewed it on my retro review series, and I gave it a pretty good review, if I recall. I like Bride of Chaotica a lot. It's a lot of fun. It's a wonderful pastiche of 1940s and 50s sci-fi movie serials. It's including like either the actual original props or recreations of the original props. That robot is directly from, I think it's Radar Men on the Moon. It's great. But would I sacrifice that episode to make Voyager as a whole over those 7 seasons a much better show? In a heartbeat. Yes, of course I would. Because hopefully, and you don't know because it's all hypothetical, it's all in my imagination, so we don't know. But hopefully there would be even better episodes that would be there to take its place, including maybe even hopefully some silly, funny, goofy episodes. So yeah, but I know I really, really like that episode a lot. Yeah, Kane, exactly. I have to watch Superman. I'm only up to 5. How am I going to watch it 5 more times before it leaves theaters if I had to do a live stream every single week? Come on, man. So for those of you who missed the, by the way, Call Me Mr. Broadstreet says, thank you for what you do. Well, thank you for saying that. I really appreciate it. Captain, you'd be surprised. You'd be surprised how early I could go to bed if I put my mind to it. Anyway, so for those of you who missed the beginning of the stream, earlier today, I saw Superman in the theaters for the 5th time. And that now means that Superman is tied for 3rd place with Eyes Wide Shut as the in the list of movies that I have seen the most in theaters. So 3rd place is 5 times Superman and Eyes Wide Shut. 2nd place is 6 times, and that's Magnolia. And 1st place with 7 times is Spider-Man 2. And I might be able to bump Spider-Man 2 up and make it 8 next month if I can get to one of those what are they? What's the fucking, anyway, they're re-releasing on like Fanatics series or something. I forget what it's called, but they're re-releasing the Sam Raimi Spider-Man trilogy in theaters on a very limited basis. It's going to be out on a Friday, a Saturday, and a Sunday in September, and then another Friday, Saturday, and Sunday in October. And I'm not sure about my video making schedule and my podcasting schedule and my live streaming schedule, how it's all going to work out. But I don't know if I'll be able to see all three of them on either of those dates. But I definitely want to get out to see Spider-Man 2 on one of those. So hopefully, if that all works out, I'll get to see Spider-Man 2 in theaters an eighth time, and then it will pad its lead. Fathom, thank you, William. Fathom, yes. Fathom Events is re-releasing the Sam Raimi Spider-Man trilogy on a limited basis. Damien Williams says, "How did you pick only one Voyager takeover?" By the way, thank you for the super chat. Well, what other ones would you nominate? What other hijacked or takeover Voyager episodes would you nominate? Because I mean, I can always come back to the theme and do it again. I mean, if there are more examples of the theme, I would be happy to do another batch. Kirag with a super chat. Thank you, my friend. How is it some of my friends and all of my online people I chatted the issue with think Superman Returns is better than Superman 4? They are both bad, I agree, but Superman 4 has freaking Reeve and Clark. Superman Returns is 1 billion times better than Superman 4, my friend. Superman 4 is a great movie. Superman 4 is a fucking masterpiece. The only bad thing about, not Superman 4, Superman Returns, excuse me. Superman Returns is better than Superman 4 by 1,000,000 miles. Superman Returns, the only thing bad about Superman Returns is that Kevin Spacey, the guy who plays Lex Luthor, turned out to be a fucking piece of shit in real life. And Bryan Singer, the guy who directed it, also turned out to be a huge fucking piece of shit in real life. And both of those facts really, really suck. And unfortunately can complicate my enjoyment of the film. But if I can ignore those factors and just watch it as a movie, Superman Returns is fucking brilliant. And I still, to this day, have absolutely no qualms in saying it's one of the best superhero movies ever made, period. Superman 4 is garbage that I have a wonderful love and nostalgia for because it's a movie I loved in my childhood. I don't have much bad to say about it in terms of, the fact that it exists and its place in my heart. But as a movie, it's absolutely terrible. But Superman Returns is a masterpiece. Like they don't even belong in the same conversation, unless the conversation is, let's just name all the Superman movies. Right? Member message from Brian. Thank you, my friend. It says, Steve, been a member for 2 years now and just wanted to let you know that I am learning about how to explain what I like and why because of you. Oh, that makes me feel good. Thank you, man. Thank you. I appreciate that. I'm glad I can help. Daryl says, Star Wars A New Hope is the only movie I've seen in a theater more than once. Yeah, I mean, most movies that I go to see in a theater, I'll only see once, like even if I really like it. I mean, Superman Returns, I think I only saw once in the theater, even though I loved it from the first time I saw it. I think I saw Ang Lee's Hulk 2 or 3 times. I really liked Ang Lee's Hulk as well. That's another hot take. That's another one of my minority positions. I will defend to the death Superman Returns and Ang Lee's Hulk, and I know I am vastly in the minority on both of those movies, but I love them both. I'm pretty sure I only saw Superman Returns once, but I saw Ang Lee's Hulk, I think 3 times. But yeah, it depends on the movie. It depends on the movie, and obviously it depends on my availability and if I'm able to get to the theater to see it more than once. But yeah, I think most people, even if you really like a movie, you probably only go to see it once. Isaiah asks, have you seen Powers Booth in Sudden Death? I don't think I have. 255 AD says, apparently the Smithsonian took Trump out of an impeachment exhibit. Would it be better for them to be defunded than to go along with that kind of nonsense? I mean, there's a part of me that says it would be better for them to stand up and sort of force Trump to defund them and let the American people see what's going on. But that might end up with them just being defunded because Trump wouldn't give a fuck. So, I mean, who's to know what the right thing to do is or what the best thing to do is in that situation. I mean, it sucks. Any institution that capitulates to Trump is doing the wrong thing and is doing a disservice to the present and to the future. But I mean, it may also be a situation where there's no good thing to do because, yeah, they can either make these changes that the Trump administration is demanding or possibly have their funding revoked. And, you know, like, what's the preferable scenario? Like, I honestly don't know. Kirok 2011 asks a really interesting question. Do people remember when Star Wars, aka New Hope, was just referred to as just Star Wars? So, yes, I remember when I was a kid, it was Star Wars, Empire, and Jedi. That's what the episode. And we didn't call them episodes; we called them movies. The episode thing, as far as the naming of the movies, really became more commonplace with the prequels, because the official title of the first prequel was Star Wars Episode 1, The Phantom Menace, right? Whereas if it had been released in, you know, the 80s, it would have been called The Phantom Menace, because that was the naming convention back then. And yes, the on-screen title, technically with the crawl and everything, was Star Wars Episode 5, The Empire Strikes Back. But like on the poster, it said The Empire Strikes Back. And Star Wars was there, but it was little tiny letters, right? So yeah, I remember when Star Wars was Star Wars. And actually, I'm not old enough to remember this because I was not alive when the movie actually opened in 1977. And this is something that I think has been like Mandela affected, because there are some people, even people who are old enough to remember, and even people who may have actually seen the movie when it was originally released in 77, who insist that it always said Episode 4 at the top of the opening crawl, and it did not. In the original theatrical cut of Star Wars, there was no episode number anywhere on screen, and it was not called Episode 4 at any point in the marketing or anywhere. It was Star Wars. And that opening crawl just began with the top line of the words. There was no Episode 4. There was no A New Hope. That did not exist until George Lucas added it in a re-release of Star Wars that came out in conjunction with Empire Strikes Back in 1980. But a lot of people have memory hold that, and they have convinced themselves that it was always called Episode 4, A New Hope, when that is not the case. But yeah, I mean, and Dana and I talk about this a lot. And it's one of my kind of sort of pet peeves that, like, the name of the movie is Star Wars, not A New Hope, not Episode 4. The name of the movie is Star Wars. And the name of its sequel is The Empire Strikes Back. And the name of its sequel is Return of the Jedi, not Episode 6, right? Like, that's just, I feel very strongly about that. Just as I feel, I mean, look, it's not, none of them are good movies. None of them are good movies. But isn't Star Wars Episode 1, The Phantom Menace, just a really shitty title for a movie? Isn't The Phantom Menace, just that by itself, a way better title for a movie? Right? I mean, come on. Isn't Star Wars Episode 3, Revenge of the Sith, or Revenge of the Sith? I mean, you've got Sith, which is a dumb made-up word, but then again, Jedi is a dumb made-up word too, and we've just kind of accepted it. But isn't Revenge of the Sith a better title than Episode 3? It's why are we making titles clunkier than they need to be? You know how people would know if it was Episode 1 if you didn't put Episode 1 in the title? You fucking market it that way, George, or whoever did that. People will get it. Like, people will get it. Yeah. Air One Fire, you're just picking fights. You're just picking fights. Star Wars Episode 4, A New Hope is a shitty title. Star Wars is an amazing title. I rest my case. I mean, you may disagree. That's fine. It's just a matter of opinion. But in my opinion, that's the entire argument. Star Wars Episode 4, A New Hope is a shitty fucking title. Star Wars is an amazing title. Okay, I'm going to get these last couple of super chats here, and then I'm going to wrap up the show. Thank you all for joining me and sticking with me for a little bit extra this time because we went a little long with the patron questions. Anyway, here's a super chat from Brian Baker. Thank you very much once again, my friend. Steve, yesterday I had surgery on my left arm. Nurses just want to laugh. The worst kind of customer service anywhere. I saw Star Trek the Motion Picture in the theater 11 times so we could get a sequel. Unsung hero here. Wow, that's great. And seeing that movie 11 times, that's like half your life. And super chat from Kirok. Thank you again, my friend. Thanks to the despecialized versions or 40 or I think you mean 77 or 4K 77. Yeah. We get Star Wars back right, and now they are doing 4K 80, which is supposed to, yeah. And I actually, I have 4K 77 on my computer. That's the version of Star Wars that I watch, and I think I have 4K 80 now as well. They haven't finished 4K 83, have they? Or if they have, I haven't been like keeping up on it regularly. I just sort of check on it when I remember. But yeah, I have 4K 77 and 4K 80 on my computer, and on my Plex server, and those are when I feel like watching Star Wars or Empire, those are the ones I watch, and they're really, really good. I really like them. Daryl, that Sith is an anagram of the SH word. You mean shit? Is just Joe says, is just A New Hope a good title? Yes. A New Hope is better than Star Wars Episode 4, A New Hope. But I don't think A New Hope is a better title than Star Wars. And also, since Star Wars was the sort of first episode of the franchise, right? Like Star Wars was the movie we call it the Star Wars franchise because the first movie was called Star Wars. So the first movie should be called Star Wars. I mean, I feel like that's not that complicated. But yeah, A New Hope is a better title than Star Wars Episode 4, A New Hope, sure. Isaiah says, will Jason and I ever do late seating about speed? Have we not done that yet? Hey, there's Jason. Hi, Jason. Oh, yeah, that's right. Okay, I need to wrap up so me and Jason can talk on the phone and talk about Strange New Worlds. All right, Jason, we haven't done speed yet, have we? If we haven't, I definitely think we should do it because I love speed. Anyway, Damien, release order or number order? Release order. Always release order. Especially with movies. But yes, always release order. All right. Thank you all, everybody, for watching. I'm going to do my wrap up. Please take note of the links that Some Random Geek shared in the chat. Also, don't forget charitylinks.page to help out some friends of ours who need a helping hand. And also, if you enjoy what I do here on YouTube and you would like to help me continue to do it, please consider becoming a supporter of this channel by becoming a patron at patreon.com/Steve Shives or clicking the join button to become a channel member. Jason, I saw Superman 5 times. Were you there for that? I saw Superman again today. I've seen it 5 times. Anyway, patreon.com/Steve Shives. Click the join button. One of the benefits you unlock as a patron or a member is you get to submit questions ahead of time for these Ask Away live streams. Those are the questions I answer in the first part of the show. So I could not continue to do this without my patrons and members. Thank you all so much for your support. I appreciate you more than I can say. Also, if you enjoy the YouTube stuff I do, I'm also on a couple of podcasts that are created and co-hosted and edited and have all the hard work done by the great Jason Harding, who is in the chat with us right now, Opinionville. I am on Late Seating, the movie review podcast, where Jason and I take a look at classic films and give them a fresh review and decide whether they deserve their reputations, good or bad. Our latest episode is our review of the Jim Carrey, Kate Winslet classic, Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind. See what we think about Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind. One of our most requested reviews. It's one that we have come very close to doing many times in the past. And we finally just said, fuck it, we're doing it. So Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind on Late Seating, our most recent episode. Also, I am a cast member on the Ensign's Log, which is the Star Trek themed comedy podcast that I'm on alongside Jason and our very good friend Amanda Billings. And we play original characters who exist in the universe of Star Trek. And we make up our own characters and we make up our own stories that take place kind of alongside the events that you see in actual Star Trek shows. Like the actual events of the Star Trek episode are kind of happening in the background or have just happened or are about to happen while we are indulging in our wacky shenanigans. So we are very rapidly approaching the start of a new season. I believe we are recording the first new episode of the new season, not this weekend, but next weekend. Until then, if you haven't listened to the Ensign's Log, please take this opportunity to binge the shit out of it and catch up on the previous, 7 seasons that we have now completed of the Ensign's Log, and we're heading into season 8. If you like Star Trek, if you like funny Star Trek, if you like stuff that makes fun of Star Trek, I think you'll enjoy the Ensign's Log. Oh, and another super chat from Kirok says, my vote would be for you and Jason is Near Dark. I like that movie too. And thank you once again for the super chat, my friend. All right, everybody. That's it. I'm going to go so me and Jason can talk on the phone and talk about Strange New Worlds. I'm going to bet that he didn't like the new episode as much as I did, but I could be wrong. And you know what? Maybe I didn't like it as much as I'm letting on either. You don't know. Maybe I liked it, but I didn't love it. I never said I loved it, did I? I said I liked it. That can mean all kinds of things. Anyway, thanks for watching. Have a good night. Have a good weekend. Take care of yourselves, and I'll see you next time. Bye, everybody.